for another session of Power Hour with Science series. So this is we had a very successful series of sessions and speakers over the last 4 months since we started this webinar series. We have done 16 such webinars in the past, and this is the 17th webinar we are having. And the topic for this webinar that we have for you is opportunities and challenges for AI and ML startups. And we have with us Dr. Chiranjeev Roy, who is Senior Vice President, SG Analytics. Welcome, Dr. Roy.
Thank you.
I'll just quickly start with an introduction of Dr. Roy. So Dr. Chiranjeev Roy has 18 years of experience in incubating, leading, and driving data analytics, science, and AI across Fortune 100 organizations such as Nissan Motors, Mercedes-Benz, Hewlett-Packard, and HSBC Data Analytics. And he holds a PhD in applied data sciences with research in Mercedes-Benz Max Planck Institute of Informatics, Germany, and IIT BHU. Dr. Roy has more than 18 patents on the usage of data science to solve real-world problems by developing or enhancing products and gaining efficiencies, and has held multiple industrial track and workshop chair positions. He is a member of Analytics Society of India and has given invited talks and keynote in multiple national and international conferences, including Data Innovation Summit 2020, Cypher 2018, Data Hacks 2017, and Chiranjeev loves creating products, hence promotes and guides startups and incubation cells across the world, and also loves teaching at various business and technology universities. With that, Chiranjeev, Dr. Roy, I would like to hand over to you. And the format of the webinar would be like this. We'll have introduction to the topic. I'm sure that you are taking us through a presentation that you prepared. And we will have some Q&A from the participants to follow. And then we will take those questions towards the end. And if there's any questions from the participants, they can also type into the Q&A box at the bottom, or use the chat option. What we prefer that you use the Q&A box so that Dr. Roy can answer these questions, or type answers to your questions as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rakesh. First of all, thank you everyone for joining this discussion. I would rather call it a lot more better interactive session that we are going to have, right? And I would like to thank the entire SEN organization and IIT Bombay for this opportunity. With the SEN in the past last 16 sessions, people have enjoyed it. I hope we would have some interesting discussions today, right? And take it forward from here. As being said, please put off your questions on the Q&A panel, and we'll try to answer it together, right? I think let's make it that way. That would be quite better. So without further ado, let me open. So this slide primarily was created not to showcase the 20 years of work that I've gone through from 2001 till today, where today I had the practice head for data analytics and data sciences for the SG Analytics as an organization, which pioneers in multimodal research, in extreme data analytics with respect to media and entertainment, CPG verticals, and retail, and so on and so forth. But this slide is much more important that you need to present what you develop, because that's what is more important, and people love graphics, right? From that perspective, I think we'll talk a lot about graphics and how do you interpret them, because they will help you a lot with respect to developing a very successful startup. Just a background from the perspective, I post my maths and stats background. I took about 10 years to decide whether I should do a PhD or not, right? And I took about 6 years in order to formulate some problems and develop some nuances which went to create and apply data sciences and creating some world-class products which gets used and so on and so forth with respect to complexity and real-time usage to the consumer. So that's That's my overall background. So who is me is what this represents. Now let's start with this entire thing. Startup primarily are the ones who represents a digital transformation, and more so over post COVID, or in the new world that we all say, right? um, I think the only thing which is going across the world is data. Now, data is not just technology. It's about the people, process, and the technology. So technology is an enabler into this entire aspect. I give you an idea about the problems that we can have, right? And that's what our entire session would be, and we'll go from there. But the people are customers, dealers, OEMs, vendors, service providers, consumers, right? Even internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, right? Even if it is a data aggregator, still there are multiple people in who are involved. So what do they face, and why do you require an idea to be incubated as a product or a solution? Are the process problems? Either it is a business problem, either it is a process problem, either it is an engineering problem, or directly customer related problems. And we'll discuss about some of them. Now, once we identify that the people and the processes have a direct impact on an idea that we can develop, right? That's where every startup evolves, right? We understand the problem, we develop, create prototypes, rapid prototypes to be precise, and then a minimal viable product comes out. The minimal viable product scales up to solve the problem. And that's what is very essential when you want to carve out an idea to a successful delivery mechanism, to be precise. Quite a few examples which are there in our day-to-day life, from Paytm to Zoom. That's what we are talking on, right? Now, at the bottom of this entire core, either we have a design problem, we have a production or a delivery problem, or a customer experience problem. Depending upon where the problem is laid, the first thing is to digitalize or to get the data. So I'm trying to merge digitalization with data together, because it's not just design, it's a digitalization of a process which is data driven, right? Once you identify the problem, you need to first attract the data. Once you attract the data, you start generating data, and you understand what is a good data and a bad data, and what are the things that you can evolve from there. That is when data science and analytics comes into picture, which is directly related to the inference that we really want to provide. Once we have that intelligence into place on what are we trying to solve, and what do we want to predict, what do we want to foresee to the consumer, we develop algorithms, we develop pipelines or data driven machine learning pipelines, which can convert into APIs and then create products out of it, right? Multiple APIs define a product, or uh, or subsequent solutions, multiple solutions coming out of APIs define a product in itself, right? So this is all about the data-driven digital transformation. That is what the core of the entire value is, right? And we enter into the value chain. Now we'll discuss about a few use cases today. The world is quite vast in this space, right? We'll talk about the cloud SaaS. SaaS, as you all know, right, is a software as a service, right? We generally talk about cloud SaaS, most of it. Thereby, you can create comparatively products and services and solutions much more faster. We'll talk about two of them today, engineering and governance. In governance, we'll talk about legal. In engineering, we'll talk about an amalgamation of IoT, ML, NLP, and how do you deploy it on cloud SaaS. Then finally, we understand what would be the idea to a product and the kind of challenges that we normally face, and discuss about it. And then we'll go to a Q&A. Yeah. Now let's talk about two major problems here in engineering. One is a machine vision based problem, which is a smart inspection. And the second one is a connected workshop. It might sound in the first phase that it is comparatively very automotive centric um, thought process. But as and when we progress, we will be able to see how this can be reusable across products. Now let's tell through this slide. I will not get much more deeper. I mean, this is comparatively more scientific. But what this tells you is we were facing some problems, right? From the perspective of there were some products which had some indefinite problems, and to find these spare parts and its quality, right? There had to be multiple supervision which needs to be done, right? What we went ahead and do is we created multiple algorithms. We went through developing a pipeline, right, and created multiple nuances in order to find out where the exact problem is, where it is located, and can we put it on a real time in a manufacturing conveyor belt in a factory shop floor, right? This approach was deployed on an assembly line on a dowel pinhole, basically, on a surface problem and non-surface problems, basically, 3D problem, right? In a depth problem as well, right? From that perspective, and had multiple use cases. The knowledge, as I said, right, it's all revolves around people and process. The process has been extremely lengthy, and that is where the evolution of the mindset came into picture, that we create an enterprise product, right, which can scale across, understand through some cameras, and how do we utilize it in a real time basis, right? So this was an experiment. This is a POC. Now let's see how do we scale it up to a product. Now, this is one of the APIs. How does it function? I had to take out the data, but you can see here that this is a machine learning based pipeline, does multiple annotation and so on and so forth. It does a grade classification. It understands the grade of the problem, right? Basic multi-class classification problem, right? Basic deep learning based approach, which can try and find what is the grade of the problem, what kind of problem it is, right? And what is the percentage that this corrosion problem can be identified well in advance from that perspective, right? Now, how does it go to a deployment? In the deployment phase, we have a direction in line, and then we understand the objects of visual inspection, right? So we put a box camera, right? And there are multiple applications, but this was when you were developing a product, you need to keep the cost, right? And operational expenditures very much into mind when you develop products, right? So this was the minimal rapid prototype, and this entire piece was developed with engineering team in about 4 to 5 months, right? um, on multiple levels of problems. We have a tracking meter. We have an we have we have an NVIDIA GPU integrated card, right, which takes in the information from the line camera through a pipeline, right? And this line camera scans each and every one at a real time level, and just out of the inspection area, we are able to identify what is the defect, how many defects are there, what kind of defect it is, and what is the grade and the density of the problem, right? And we at the conveyor belt level, we differentiate between the defective objects and the quality objects. So we keep the defective objects out, and quality objects basically go through the direction of the line. Looks very simple in nature, but when you start integrating it at a real time level, this becomes a lot more flexible, right? A lot more complicated when you actually go ahead and define it, right? This was an integrated SaaS product. Now, how do we develop or create simultaneous ones in a real-time enterprise nature based on cloud? Because this was done in factory, right? It was an on-premise deployment. Now, how did we do a cloud deployment for this? Before going into this, let me try to tell you about, if you have to scale the same problem, right? Always reusability comes into picture, right? So same problem, multiple use cases. Now, we all know about the used car market right now. It's going very boom at this point in time. There is a lot of a lot of things which are happening around, right? From that perspective. And used cars buy and sell platforms, connected workshop, car servicing chains, OEMs, fleet owners, used car finance people, as well as there are multiple opportunities for different forms of startups in order to get into this entire game itself, right? So let's try to elaborate how can this be developed into a cloud SaaS, and some of them are already being developed from that perspective. For example, the 360-degree damage assessment. Now here we need to expand the use case. In the previous use case, we saw that we need to understand the external damage, right, for a particular spare part. So if you can do that for a spare part, you can definitely do it for a car, right, on the base design, right, or in a physical inspection, right. That's an external damage. How would you understand an internal damage? So in any of the automotive forms, right, you use a converter. You actually need to get the data out of the vehicle, right? It can be a car, it can be scooter, it can be bikes, right? Whichever form it is, there are cam edge devices, right, which takes out the data, and there are devices which are getting created every day and day out, right? We take out the data in one of the most popular forms, which is called MF4, basically measurement format 4, right? You ship it to the cloud, and then and this data primarily comes in a time series format, right? And this data processed and gives you real-time information about the structure, integrated structural components, right, inside the vehicle. It can be the powertrain, which is the chassis and powertrain, chassis, engine, right, and so on and so forth. That gets continuously monitored, right? This data, when gets mixed with the information that you can see on the top, can give you a 360-degree damage of assessment. So externally, you are doing a visual inspection. Internally, because a lot of places the camera cannot be utilized, right, to do it, you would be able to merge both of this information together, creating a data lake, and you can do a 360-degree damage assessment. How does it actually go to a consumer? Some of the examples, right? So from a programming perspective, a lot of people might not like it, but this is how at the back end it looked like, right? So we see the dent, it has got broken, what is the scratch and medium, and so on and so forth. Whether the scratch is medium, how much, where is the exact location, you can see the locations and so on and so forth. Similarly, when you talk about vehicle, you can actually utilize it for mobile inspections as well, right? You can see the temperament, how much damage it is, what kind of damage it is. You can, and it takes extremely less amount of time with respect to when it is done at a larger scale, right? So this can be utilized very much, be utilized by used mobile vendors, right? So there are a lot of startups and incubators and people who are trying to work on trying to reuse technological devices, for example, mobile insurance and so on and so forth, right? Similarly, home insurance, right? Very popular in America, right? You do damage assessment through drones, and similarly, drones can be utilized for multiple other places. So what my entire premises means is that the fundamentals remains the same, correct? But the reusability differs, and that's what is the core from a startup's perspective. You define your course, but you need to make your idea so flexible that you can scale it across to multiple kind of problems from that perspective. So one idea can be scaled to multiple problems in this regard. However, the output is comparatively different from that perspective. That you will be time, but you will be able to save almost 30 to 40% of your time, and your go-to market will be very fast from this perspective. Here you can assess the damage of the house, and you can go ahead and quickly calculate the cost of providing the insurance. So how much insurance that needed to be provided can be devised from here. Now, how do you this is one of the examples from Amazon, right? So once you've developed algorithms and you know that this algorithm is a great stuff to have, how do you deploy it? Deployment is comparatively critical. I'm giving an example of Amazon. So there are three major cloud providers, and I'm not biased about anyone at this point in time. Amazon is the quickest. does not solve all the problems. Microsoft has shown a good amount of flexibility, quickly scaling it up, right? And Google, the GCP platform, right, has got amazing features from that perspective, right? I have worked much upon AWS. That is why I'm giving you the information from my side, right? What you can see from here is you get information from multiple vehicles, and these vehicles can be, it can be car, it can be bike, it can be cycle, and so on and so forth. In places like Amsterdam, they're already trying with hired cycles, right, and so on and so forth. Once you get the data out with the AWS IoT, right, connector, right, you actually stream in the data. Um, it goes through the Lambda function, which does the registration of the data and segregate the data. You put the raw data in S3 bucket, right? Once you put the raw data through S3 bucket and you have the information, you can see three to four type of problems can be easily addressed through here, and you can create an application out of it. Starting from the bottom, diagnostic trouble codes. Diagnostic trouble codes, or DTC, are very popular in the manufacturing and automotive world or engineering world, right? Every fault has a code, right? And that's what we call as diagnostic trouble codes. What diagnostics happened on that code, right? And you keep on saving that information, right, which can be churned, right? And then you create a notification service where in this use case we are trying to merge the driver safety, right? um, and the DTC code in order to give a notification service that this is the these are the ones which are going to fail. This is the problem which is currently happening. Based upon the circumstance, you get an orange alert, red alert, or a green alert, right, from that perspective. You can utilize the trip data and can utilize it with the driver safety scores as well, right? Where you can measure the driver's way of driving the vehicle, right? And all can be utilized to develop anomaly detection models where things cannot work in a future, right? What are the failure predictive points that you can develop and can come into entire of this activity? Okay, this is the backend architecture or the application architecture of this, right? There on which needs to be merged with uh, design, right? A user flow UX design, right? And a, a good application in that regard. Now, this sums up one of the first pieces on where we started with the basic experiment in a problem and scales up to a multi-nodal problem in a scalable format, which actually is a product. Let's go to the next one. This is comparatively a bit more simpler, right? But it's very efficient for connected workshops. And we have faced a lot of people face it day in and day out. You have bikes, your scooters, your vehicles, right? You go to the workshop, a lot of time is taken in order to understand the problem and then resolve the problem. So how does telematics, big data, mobile, NLP, and machine learning all come together can solve this problem in itself? Now, imagine this scenario. This scenario, primarily the car breakdowns on the road. You call up the customer center. The customer center writes down the problem. The customer care executive gives that notification to the service engineer, getting a service note, right? And it takes to understand the problem and the number of problems that your vehicle would have, right? The customer gets the car with some initial problems being solved finally, right? Once the vehicle is out of the workshop. But there are problem number 2 and problem number 3, which has remained. Moreover, after a few days, the problem might reoccur again. So your actual problem was never even solved from that perspective. So how do we solve that problem in itself? Again, an algorithmic structure as a concept. It takes the voice inputs of the customer and the engineer. We just talked about the defect code, right? You convert them to understand the problem, and that problem you create an algorithm which can understand and try to vectorize or try to find the solution to the problem, right? The best 3 to 4 resolutions to the problem, and that gets converted into a system and an alert mechanism through a mobile interface. So how does it work? Just a glimpse of how actually is a diagnostic text is actually kept into picture in a real-time manufacturing environment, right? Is you have sensors, you have the diagnostics text, right? What is the defect? What kind? So here you can see the parking sensors, right? How, if there are any failure nodes, what are the kind of problems it has gone into, and so on and so forth. So um, engineering teams documented comparatively very well, but in a technical language. So how do you merge the information coming out from the customer in order to find the best possible resolution from the perspective is still a bigger problem that we're trying to solve. And one of these ideas, basically, which is developing a taxonomy, defect taxonomy, is comparatively used, has been started using in order to be utilized. So this entire piece is done through natural language processing, basically, right? And this is how NLP comes into picture. So you train feature extractors, create a machine learning pipeline in order to create clusters of the problems, right? For example, you can see here, check, clutch, transmission, remove fluid, cylinder, replace, fault, and cool, and so on and so forth. There are some meaningful themes which are coming out of it. And this is how your description happens, basically, right? You create the core topics and the corpus in order to describe the problem, right? Once you describe the problem, you create classifier, which is primarily one of the major, one of the ways that you develop in order to find or classify the problem and attach the label to the problem. Once you're done, basically, you would be able to find the relevant resolution in the database. Now, how does it go to a product? What you can see on the left is basically there are some OBDI devices. Basically, OBDI is onboard diagnostic devices, right? CAMAGE and so on and so forth. It can be integrated or it can be shaped from outside, but you can see here. So we have a live trip dashboard, we have driving and wealth and the vehicle health alerts, right? And then you can review the driving history currently directly from here. And you can see on this piece that we have the DTC code, which is automatically generated with respect to the problem, and it also gives you the degree of the problem from that perspective. So it gives you a real-time live dashboard. This way of mechanism of getting the data is called telematics. How the data comes with is through the OBD, which is the onboard diagnostic. The utilization or computation of the data is done through big data, right? And the inference is done in a React based or a Flutter based mobile application. The backend engine, which does the predictive analogy, is done through a machine learning pipeline, which you can definitely build with Python. That's the summary of the entire game. Now, this is how you can create a connected workshop. So seamless through from the customer to the workshop technician, and the speed, quality, quantity, and connectivity develops the entire user experience from the mechanic to the customer. Now let's look at one of the other class of the problems, which is in legal. So let me play this video, and you will probably try to love this activity. Yeah.
Dr. Roy, there is no audio if there is.
No. So I've muted the audio in order to understand. So bankruptcy is one of the major problems of India and all across the world, more so ever with COVID-19. Here you can see the companies in distress and they're reaching out for help, right? We have created some amazing boards, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, Digital India, and so on and so forth. There is a there is an amazing class of work which has gone into developing and making ease of usage for all the consumers, right? All through with MSMEs as well. But there are some key challenges. It's all quite manual. Debtors cannot reach on time, and the process is too lengthy, which comes into picture. One of the products and the startups that I've been working with developed this application called Solvendo.io, which is an AI-enabled digital bankruptcy platform, which primarily tries to help the activity in the regard. Now, what does it do is something that we are trying to understand here. So the creditor looks for a resolution professional, basically, who is a lawyer, who is a specialized lawyer, specializes in bankruptcy, right? This activity basically goes on from that nature, and there is an explicit timeline that he comes to this platform. When he comes to the platform, he searches for the resolution professional, right? And he gets intervened with this resolution professional who is an IRP, but still now it is a human intervention, right? He appoints an IRP using the platform and along with the legal framework, right? Getting the court orders and so on and so forth. So till now, it is the tech, right, part of the job, right? So there is an agreement which happens between the IRP and the platform as well as the data in this entire journey. When you do this activity, then you primarily come across a lot of enhancements and legal activities. Now, this is the law tech part of the game. Till now, we have been digital. Now, this is the law tech part of it, right? Where you can easily get the forms being organized, and you can fill up the forms with respect to NCLT and so on and so forth. You will be guided on doing this activity, more so ever on how do you want to form the problem, what are the kind of problems that has been facing, is it a financial problem, is it a non-financial problem, and so on and so forth, right? So that's the legal design part of it from that perspective, right? Now, this being said, the resolution professional now becomes the head of the entire organization, right? And once he becomes the head of the organization, he onboards the other stakeholders, financial creditors, operation creditors, right? Operational who give goods and services, financials are the banks, primarily the banks from that perspective. And then this information is used to carve out the entire piece. So how do we do it? So there is a data room which is created. Now comes the data part of it, right? The resolution professional creates the data, tries to educate from that perspective, right? What is the different forms of data that is required, how to take the data, who will have to give the data. They take the essential steps in order to look at from the legal nuances, right, which has been prescribed by the law, right, through this platform itself. And then a computation engine starts working on top of it. Now comes machine learning and artificial intelligence, right? These procedures and steps, including forms, have been already digitalized from this perspective, right? And that is where things come into picture from that perspective, right? We start understanding the data. There is an engine which keeps on working across, right? It begins the data search with the data population, makes efforts to populate the missing values of the missing information from the virtual data room, right? The data room is the information is saved from that activity. Once the data is saved into that activity, right, it relies heavily on the financial data, creditors data, employee data, right, litigations, and the information, the different forms, and all this information is taken into an account to develop the next level, right? You first apply NLP, right, in order to find the nuances, what is it which is missing, as in which is a amalgamation of machine learning and NLP algorithms to understand what is the data that the creditors have submitted, whether the claims are correct or not, whether the whether the information is matching or not. You create a knowledge graph on top of it, which is an entire pipeline in itself, right? And what the IRP finally gets is a combined and composite report, right? In order to speed it up, the IRP finally then again goes into the digital form, gets the forming of creation of the committee of creditors, and then once the creditors are all onboarded, they are given the entire report on what is the status of the organization. Should you continue with this organization, right? Would you be able to save this organization in itself, right? And what are the critical problems that needs to be addressed if you have to do this activity? um, the other application of this is basically once this is done, you get through computer vision, which can actually go ahead and help identify and find and analyze the assets, basically, right? The fixed assets like factories, the inventories and the assets which are there, in this, right? Because valuation is one of the most important things. If you have to understand the organization, you need to value their assets, right? So that is where computer vision and deep learning comes into picture, right? It understands structures and unstructured data, right? Private and public data from understanding the people who are associated in that perspective, right? And then it goes ahead and creates an ecosystem in itself through an continuous procedural aspect from that perspective. The data analytics, which is done on the entire piece, right, which contains company's balance sheet, credit information, asset portfolio, right, business of the corporate debtors, and so on and so forth, that gets as a combined information through a federated machine learning approach, which will use the human in the loop, which is primarily the RPs and the COCs and the members, and then create a mechanism in which both can learn from each other. And this basically brings on to the picture that we actually go ahead and solve the problem in the most nearest time with the form of business intelligence that we require in order to take formidable um, decisions about the organization. And there might be multiple chances to save this organization itself, right? To make it a successful organization. There have been a couple of examples which has been going in through, but it's always been a human intelligence which has come into picture. And that is where all these pieces come together to create an AI product, right? So this in turn is a complex process where the entire engine can work out and help the resolution professional, because currently the rate of resolution in India is about 900 plus days. And we all know about organizations like Jet Airways and so on and so forth, right? It has taken more than 1.5 years in order to come to an activity in itself, right? So there are multiple opportunities where digital and data can mix together, utilizing artificial intelligence, machine learning, NLP, computer vision, right, in order to actually find a resolution plan to save an organization. And if you go to the internet, you will be finding a lot of information about Jet Airways, which is one of the hot topics right now at this point in time, right, from that perspective. So this is where it stands with respect to it, as an example on how do you create an actual product in itself, right, which can come into liquidation, and thereby you can save it perspective. Even if the company goes into liquidation, you still can evaluate and scale it down from that perspective, because 800 to 900 million dollar organizations are getting wiped out um, due to cash problems and so on and so forth, right? So there might be multiple ways which can be carved out in order to solve this entire problem in itself from that perspective. So let me move on from here. And I've given two different examples. One is a complex manufacturing problem, and the other one in manufacturing itself, how can you utilize in reusable format? And then is a structured legal governance problem, which can come into picture, right? From that perspective, Solvendo.io is already launched, and there are some products which are getting to be launched. How can an idea become an AI product in itself, and where do we stand from that perspective? Now, it's always a definition a lot of people say about what are the 1% of success startups versus 99% of failures, right? There is no concrete definition according to me, but there are few levers, right? So either we don't have money, we have a poor team, we have a poor product, bad timing, passionate problems, competition, non-profitability, bad location, burnout issues, legal problem, customer issued, internal team problems, and so on and so forth. But what is most important is delivery, which is poor, which is related directly to the product, and the team which delivers, basically, who has understood the problem, right? Most of the other things can be utilized if you really have understood the problem well, defined the problem well, and went through that problem to create a sustainable product which can scale up, looking at the changing landscape of the environment today in itself, right? How do we do it? So from idea to market, we we generally have normally, this is a very standard one, all over available, but first understand the business model challenge, right? Then develop the technology and the team, right, which can deliver the product or create the product. You take a market understanding on one, not just the funding, but the acceptability or viability and and availability and sellability, right, of the product which we want to do, right? And finally, we need to go to the market from that perspective, right? Now, what is proof of concept? So proof of concept is primarily an idea, which is a description which is important, right? You co-create with internal. If you have internal team, you can develop it on your own. How do you develop a team is something we're going to talk about. You develop a proof of concept which can test assumptions much more faster, because this is very important. Developing a proof of concept is great, but how fast can you develop? What are the assumptions? Can it check all the hypotheses in the market, and then you can develop or create or have a decision internally whether to have a go or a no go, be devised on the pilot. So the faster that you fail, the faster that you evolve, is the keenness of this entire thing. It is a bit difficult when it comes to AI ML based startups, right? From that perspective, because you have to land up multiple journeys, and we'll talk about how can we actually go ahead and do, right, what has worked and what has not worked, right? So you have an idea, you canvas out the ideas, expectations, customers, and the KPIs that you require. You discover which kind of who are doing this, right? Are there people who are actually trying to do it, right? Relevant one to you assess. You assess the development, how much time that you would require, because too much of time will eat up your go-to market, right? You build or develop the proof or rapid proof of concept, which in manufacturing we call it rapid prototyping, right? And then you test with actual customers, right? You connect with people, stakeholders, and get your failure points, right? As I have started my discussion from people and process, people are very important in order to consume your product. And that's what is the key to the success of any of the products from that perspective. Now, how do you develop an AI product, right? Which includes data science, artificial machine learning, and design in itself. So you have designer, you need to have a designer, you need to have a data architect, right, or solution architect, and delivery lead, right, which can manage this entire development lead, right, from that perspective. If all of them are there in the founding members, great. If you don't, you need to have them sometime or the other, right? Then you need to merge all these four capabilities in order to do the development: data, machine learning, DevOps, right? In most of the cases, products are developed in a normal cloud SaaS world, right? You have only DevOps which can solve from designer to a product perspective. But when you're developing a data level problem product, right, you need to merge all of these four. And this should continuously go in a CI/CD format, which is continuous integration and continuous development, right, or a continuous deployment. And finally, the version one of the product comes out. It can be POC, it can be minimal viable product, then the version one and version two and version three, and so on and so forth. So this is the hierarchy of the kind of skills and capabilities that you would require, right, in order to launch a AI based product. So this is where I would like to stop today, basically, and would like to take your questions. But this, in fact, is not the end of the entire piece, but it depends upon the kind of problems that you would like to work on. What are the kind of enhancements that you can go in for, right? How your problem solution can change. Some of the times your problems don't even exist after a few months. For example, some of the things that you might have seen in your development phases, pre-corona and post-corona. So some of the business ideas have been wiped out. Okay. So hence, the problem that you choose should be sustainable in the new world too, is comparatively much more important. And please keep in mind that this is going to continue for a longer run, and we have to evolve ourselves. So your product should be sustainable and learnable from that perspective. Thank you so much.
Um, thanks, Dr. Roy. Now we'll take some questions from the participants, and we, Dr. Roy, can you see the Q&A box?
I
There
can.
is
So
some.
let me go ahead and read it. Rakesh, don't worry. I'll do this. So the first question that has come here is want to know about providing testing services in AI ML. Um, providing testing services, do you mean you want to create a service based analogy to provide for AIML startups or product organizations for testing services? Yes, it can be done, provided you understand different kind of problems. So there are two types of testings, right? Functional testing and automated testing nuances. So one, if you're providing testing services, your Python has to be very strong. So open source is most of the people that do like to have some of the nuances. For example, if there is a data security problem and so on and so forth at an enterprise level, there might be analogies where SQL information might come into picture. So either unstructured, as in is a serverless data, right, or a non-serverless data, right, um, um, can be utilized. But yes, definitely testing services can be developed, but your functional background and your technical background both needs to be stronger, because what you're testing is something that you need to understand, right? Are you testing algorithms? Are you testing the functional flow? Are you testing the technical flow of the game?
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question from Sandeep. So the question is, which is inclined towards the cost of technology. They're currently using GCP's Dialogflow, the NLU engine, but the cost of the service will increase exponentially, even for text queries with an increase in users. So how should they go on limiting costs? And is forming an indigenous NLU engine a good idea for a startup in early stages? If yes, how should we approach this problem?
See, in a practitioner frame, right? So I'll bear two hats into this. One is a PhD hat and a delivery leader hat, right? If I talk about a PhD hat, never use a GCP based product. Never use a third party API from my ideation. Let's come to delivery app, which means you need to take care of the cost as well as the time to go to the market. There are multiple Python based APIs, and it just needs to be researched from that perspective, right? There are a lot of researchers who have already done that activity for you, right? If somebody has already worked on an NLU problem, right, would definitely be able to come in as a consultant and help you out, Sandeep, from that perspective. You don't need to spend much of time. The problem which happens here most of the times is that the people who are into our product development have not researched properly on what is available right now. So one of the best intentions, right, I've seen in backend development is, chalo, GCP is available. Let's plug that API and start working. The problem which comes is, one is it will give you false positives comparatively faster when you start scaling it up in different problems. And then in a longer run, GCP is gonna take your dime out, right? You will never be able to scale up, because on top of it, you need to put up your money as well, right? From that perspective, right? I would say Python based machine learning pipelines are very easy to create. Just that you need to know the architecture. We just don't find the time to create that architecture in itself. It is a solution architecting problem and finding problem, Sandeep, from that perspective. If you research on it, and you, even if you don't know, just get somebody for a consulting for 2 to 3 weeks and get it done. There are problems which has been already solved, and it is better to have your own API rather than using somebody else's. In some of the cases, it might not be necessary. Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Roy. I'll take this question from Pankaj. He asks, in AI product-based startups, how to build the POC with absence of data. Data is crucial, but he's asking how can you build if they don't have sufficient data, and how to effectively test it, considering the fact that the initial version of the algorithm will have a lot of uncertainty for the output.
Absolutely. And it's a classical problem across the board. Okay. I've started this discussion with people and process. Never think about technology in the first place itself, right? First thing is to get the data. That is very important, right? And then segregating what is a good data and bad data. The data should be able to give you the patterns, and that's where, see, that is the crux of machine learning and data sciences, right? We spend about 90% of our time in order to fundamentally find what is a good data and bad data. The good data actually goes for training, and the bad data should be utilized to create good data, which will come into your further artifacts, right? Your actual testing of your mechanism. Now, there is no straight cut answer to your problem. But one thing which I have seen and realized post multiple failures as well, right, is there is definitely a mechanism in order to gather information and gather data or generate data. And it is very important to identify and label the information properly. Otherwise, your entire algorithm will go for a toss, right? Even your testing structure as well. So identify the areas, identify the people who understand that problem. I gave you an example of the legal use case, right? It had to be a lawyer to drive this discussion. You cannot be a technologist to solve the problem. You have to understand this, right? You need to be a design engineer, maybe for a small part of time, in order to know where the problem comes from. If you understand where the problem comes from, data is comparatively easy, and then the data will automatically start giving you time. But if you're just putting a technology hat and trying to find the nuances or the pattern of a data, algorithms don't give you that information. It is the people and the process who will give you that information on how do you label it. And labeling is the actual, and as in is the mother of entire application development in artificial intelligence.
Thanks, Dr. Roy. I'll take this question from Rajesh Shenoy. He asks, while designing a product, what are some of the things you do to make sure it is flexible and reusable for different clients?
So if I understand your question properly, so what are the kind of problems that should be chosen which can really impact multiple kind of consumers? If
Yeah.
different kind of consumers, right? Very good question. I gave an example in the dowel pinhole problem, right? It started from a lab. I gave you an example on how do you scale up to the entire piece. Now so I told you about it can be utilized in the insurance industry, right? Trying to find an insurance about home, right? Visual inspection engine, right? It can be created to find the cost of the defective part and how much do you need to pay to the service center, right? In order to get your bike or a car fixed. Imagine you created a new shop, right? So Christmas is coming, right? And you opened a new startup, right? In order to give gift boxes, right? Um, Now just play this into this game where you have thousands of suppliers, right? Let's say you have 4 suppliers. One is giving you almonds, second is giving you cashew nuts, right? Third one is giving you raisins, right? And fourth one is giving you apricot. You run it through a basic IP camera, and you will be able to give the best of the quality in the box, whether the box is packaged properly, right? This is an operation framework, right? So I'm trying to make it use for a gift box company, right? It's not always the best algorithm which works in the world. It is your design. Your designer hat should come into creating this aspect, right? Whereby you are you are trying to increase the productivity, you are trying to merge with the quality as well. So your every um, every piece of your elements are checked thoroughly, right? in like a conveyor line. You can easily create a conveyor line, right? People create Lego boxes every day. We are in the white head age, right? We all are programmers, right? So you can develop this entire piece in operations. Pre to this operation, how many people can you, so data science and business intelligence can help you go ahead and identify the people whom are you going to sell. So you're in your nearest neighbor vicinity, who are the people, right? If you consider a location mapping analytics piece, right? You can usually utilize a Google Map API and try to find where are the concentration of the products where people are selling, right? Who are your nearest shops, right, that you can deliver your supply. You are giving your optimum quality product, right? So this is pre-sales. When you go to sales, you can create a data aggregator. So I solved your pre-sales problem, your operational problem, your counting problem, and quality defect problem, and finally delivered your data aggregator product, which you can take it to the market. This, in fact, you can package in a solution or a software, and you can sell it to any new gift box vendor, correct?
Um, I'll take. I have a question, Dr. Rai. So we have seen this happening that AI ML, there are a lot of startups even incubated at Sign, and when they did the customer discovery, for example, they get this question that will AI ML kind of replace what we are doing. So that is kind of a feedback that some of them got. For example, there's one working on radiology analysis of images, medical images. So when they approached radiologists, they were very and telling that will that replace them in the job, and they had to finally educate them, saying that this is not kind of a replacement, but it's more of an assistive tech. So how do we, that's a challenge that some of our entrepreneurs are facing. So how do they kind of put forward this tech without changing the current ways things are done?
No, it's a very vital question, Rakesh. I think this is the mother of all the questions that you've asked. My perspective, no controversies apart. Across the about 20 odd products that I have created in my career, maybe lesser than that, right? Which has gone into cars and so on and so forth. And the enormous amount of failures that I have seen. Technology can only be an enabler. It can be data-driven technology, artificial intelligence, data sciences. These are all enhancement and optimization to the current problem that you are trying to solve as a topic. It cannot replace a human being. I presume it is not. And we have seen multiple failures which has come into picture. And you have been reading. So AI has its hype. People love it, right? It is cool as a demand, right? It can work quite faster. It is nimble. It can optimize a lot of problems. But at the end of the day, the algorithms are created by human beings itself, right? The best part, I have given an example, right? You need to identify whether an almond is good or bad. You need to tell the machine a single deviation in even the design of an almond, right? With let's say 0.5 degree, it is going to give you an error. Human beings don't do that, basically, perspective. From that perspective, that is why autonomous driving has seen its success, but it is not on the roads that you can see on the today. It is on a controlled environment. Artificial intelligence has been extremely successful in controlled environment, but who controls the environment? Human being only controls the environment, right? I had been part of the Tokyo, as in being part of Nissan. I've been with the Tokyo Olympics team, which didn't work out this time, right? Last time, basically, right? And it was an entire city of stuff which was from touchless face recognition systems to your cars which will take you from point A to point B, right? And so on and so forth. But it was all controlled, basically. The artificial intelligence learns to control things, but it takes a huge amount of time. And that is why one of the most important things, which a lot of people are talking, as in all the gurus, right, to be precise, are talking, is about human in the loop, right? So human in the loop is very important, and that's why human beings will always be on top of artificial intelligence or any technology that you can talk
Right. Thanks for that perspective, Dr. Roy. I think we are at 5 o'clock now, and I think we don't have time for more questions. But if any of them want to get in touch with you, Dr. Roy, what would be the best way? I mean, LinkedIn, or you prefer?
LinkedIn is good. As in you can, all of you, please reach out to Sain and Rakesh and Vandana. We are all connected,
We can,
right?
yeah,
LinkedIn is the best source, right? From that perspective. And I'm always always there to support some great ideas and so on and so forth. Though I'm quite brutal in some of the times. That's how I work, because I don't want you to fail most of the times, and you would also not love to be failed, right? The only thing that I would, before I go, I would say, do not wear a technologist hat. Always take a consumer hat, right? And always think, because today, if you would have started designing your product pre-corona, now the entire business would have been wiped out, right? So think about the perspective that today is COVID-19, there may be COVID 20, 21, 22, 23, I don't know how many versions will come out, right? Your your ideas along with data driven nuances, right, should sustain, right? So reach out to me, if I'm available, if I'm not available, and so on and so forth. I get delayed on so on and so forth, right? I mentor a few startups across us, Israel, India, and so on and so forth, right? And provided given the time, we'll talk through.
sure. I really appreciate your openness for this, and we do have startups, in the space, and I'll share your profile within our incubatees, and any of the others who have shown express interest, and I'll pass it on to them, and we can have a look. Yeah. With that, thanks a
Absolutely.
lot, Dr. Rai, for your time today. We really appreciate, and thanks for this wonderful session.
Thank you so much, Rakesh, Vandana, and the entire SAN team. Um, Thank you so much for all your patience, my precious attendees. Thank you so much.
Sure, thanks.
Good day ahead.
We look forward to being in
Thank you.
touch with you, Dr. Rai. Cheers. Bye.